everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution, America's first sake podcast. I am your host, John Puma from thesakenotes.com, also the administrator of the Internet Sake Discord, and an all-around sake nerd, hopefully just like you.
And I'm your host, Timothy Sullivan. I'm a sake samurai, sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And together, John and I will be tasting and chatting about all things sake, and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand. So John, a little bird told me you were out on the town this week.
Yeah, you heard about that, did you?
It was in all the papers. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I found out that one of our favorite local sake bars here in New York, actually a lot of our favorite local sake bars are starting to open up again. They're out on the streets now because indoor dining is still a big no-no. But as much as I do enjoy having drinks at home, I felt like I needed to get out a little bit and have some sake outside.
Yeah, well, great minds think alike, because I did exactly the same thing. I went to Decibel, which is a well-known sake bar here in New York City. And the moment I arrived, the manager came up to me and he said, "Hey, your buddy Puma was around."
Yeah. Well, you know, like you said, great minds and such. And I do like that we're maintaining social distancing by going on different nights. That's important.
Yes, not only social distancing, but temporal distancing too. We went on different nights. It's the temporal prime directive.
Yeah, okay. So what did you think of the experience of having sake outside in Manhattan in a little cordoned off area on the street?
Well, you know, some restaurants are going to pretty deep lengths here to make it a little bit homey. Like they have the sections carved out where the cars park, and it's well protected, and they set up lights, and some bring plants out, and it's really can be homey and really nice. So we had a beautiful summer night, and I really enjoyed sitting outside. How about you?
Same thing here. I also enjoyed the protected aspect of it as well, because you are kind of barriered off from a lot of things. They also added some more tables on the side with large plexiglass shields in between them, so they can put the tables physically close to each other without needing to worry about the safety of the people at those tables, which was great. It was really nice and easy. It felt like they really were taking a lot of steps to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible given the current scenario.
Yeah. And at Decibel, normally if you go down there, you go down the stairs and you get seated, and a server comes over to your table and you look at the menu. It was a lot more casual being outside. They had basically a bar set up near the entrance, and you'd go up and look at the menu, order what you want, pay for it right there. And then they bring you the sake and they bring you the food, and everything kind of disposable. And it was almost like, you know, backyard barbecue kind of feel to it, right?
Yeah, it's like, kind of a little sake picnic.
Yes, that's right.
I like that. I think one of my favorite things that I've seen a lot of these places doing, because you can't have conventional menus because everybody's going to be touching them, and that's a big no-no. They are just putting QR codes on the tables. You come up, you scan the QR code, the menu's on your phone, and then you go and make your order. It's great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The only downside is I was obsessively checking the weather before I went. They have some tents up, but still, I don't want to get rained on. So if the weather takes a turn for the worst, it's not so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're going to get a hurricane here or anything.
Which we just did.
Yeah, that must have been a bad night to be at the bar. Oh, boy. All right. So, Tim, what do we have in store for us today? I understand it's going to be our usual sake education corner, and then we're going to sip some sake. What do you bring?
Well, I brought a fun sake today. I have, let me get it out here. I have Born Gold.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, all right. Well, that's interesting.
What did you bring, John?
I have Born Gold as well.
No, you're kidding me.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If we actually organized our sake purchases, then this would make a lot more sense. And we'd always have the same sake, but we don't do that. And so,
well, I guess great minds do think alike, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, when we first started the podcast, we were sitting side by side and we were drinking the same sake.
Right.
And ever since we've been socially distanced, we have always had different sakes. So this is kind of a fun oopsie, right?
This is nice. This is gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
I tend to enjoy the sake. I think I do like it quite a bit. Born as a brand makes a whole lot of stuff that I tend to like. How familiar are you with them?
I'm pretty familiar. I've, talked to the brewery president, Mr. Kato, many, many times over the years. I've never visited this brewery, but it's in a place called Fukui Prefecture. That's on the Sea of Japan side of the main island, down on the western side of the main island. And you know what Fukui is really famous for? I think this is funny.
I don't, but I'm ready.
Fukui is famous for dinosaur fossils.
Wait, what? Seriously?
Dinosaur fossils. You thought I was going to say strawberries or cherries or something. Right?
Usually it's something like that. Yeah. I was going to go Fukui melons, sure.
Some of the most well-preserved and most famous dinosaur fossils in Japan are from Fukui. So it's like a hotbed for archaeologists.
That's it. I had no idea. I didn't even know there were dinosaur fossils on the islands of Japan. That is fascinating.
Yeah, I once was at a sake tasting, and this sake brewer, it was not Mr. Kato, but another sake brewer, had a little toy dinosaur on his display table. And I'm like, what's up with the dinosaur? And he's like, oh, I'm from Fukui, the land of dinosaurs. I'm like, okay.
Do they have like an amusement park or something for dinosaurs?
Oh, they should. If they don't, they really should.
They need to have a little Jurassic, well, maybe not call it Jurassic Park. That would be bad. Those tend to go poorly. By the way, if you are a frequent listener, you may recall that I drank a sake from Fukui a few episodes back. It was the Hanagaki Usunigori Junmai Daiginjo. Same region. Very, very different flavor profile, though.
Absolutely. So this brewery name is also a mouthful. So the family name is Kato, right? So the president is Mr. Kato. And the official brewery name is Kato-Kichibee Shoten.
All right, I lied. I wasn't ready.
Kato-Kichibee Shoten.
Kichibee Shoten.
Kato-Kichibee Shoten.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. So
it is.
They call it Born, B-O-R-N, which is a lot easier to say.
Right. Now, is that a Japanese word, born, or is that the English word, born?
It's the English word, born.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pronounced kind of bong in Japanese, so it sounds like born, so they went with born. Okay. But I think it is kind of an evocative name, like born.
To be alive.
Yes. Now, another interesting thing about this brewery, John, is that they make only Junmai Daiginjo sake.
Ah, so they're the super premium gang.
That's right. There's a handful of breweries in Japan that only make super premium Junmai style sake. So Junmai Daiginjo only. Most breweries are not so specialized. They make a wide variety of sakes, honjozo, all different grades. But some breweries focus in primarily on Junmai Daiginjo, and Born is one of them. And they really target that luxury market.
Yeah. And my understanding is they also tend to age their sake at very, very cold temperatures. This is a piece of information I had picked up about them a long time ago.
Yeah, it's true. I think all their stuff is aged at freezing temperatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And speaking of the luxury market, the Born Gold label is gold with gold foil on it. So it looks like gold.
It does. It looks very luxurious. When is yours from, actually? So Born does actually put their dates on the bottle for their exported sake, which is really nice.
Yes.
Mine is 2019 August, exactly 1 year old.
Okay, mine is 2020-01.
Ooh.
So from January of this year. Yes.
Newer sake than me. And we'll see if there's any subtle differences in the flavor. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So
Nice.
since we both have the same thing, should we review the specs for this one?
We should. We should.
Yeah,
I
right.
believe this is a Yamada Nishiki based sake, polished down to 50%.
That's right. The sake rice is Yamada Nishiki, the king of sake rice, 50% milling.
The king.
The alcohol is 15%, 15.5 around there. And the SMV is +1.
Oh, so it's almost neutral.
Yeah. So again, the SMV sake meter value, the plus numbers as you go up get drier and drier, and the negative numbers get sweeter. So the closer you are to zero, kind of theoretically, the more balance between sweet and dry you're going to get. And then acidity is 1.5. So acidity is like a 1.0 to 2.0 range, generally speaking. So this is right in the middle. So probably a nice balanced acidity as well.
Nice. And I have a note here. This one was aged for 1 year at negative 10 degrees Celsius.
Yes, this does have a year of aging. And I don't know if you can see it, but what the bottle is actually clear glass, which is pretty unusual for sake. Normally they're green or brown. Can you see a little hint of color to this? Does it look just
very
a
slight.
little bit of hint of like a straw color in there? I think that comes from the aging, but it's very, very light. And it may be some of the gold foil reflecting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much is getting bounced around inside the label when I look at it like that. Well, I think it's a better question for when we pour it.
Yes.
And if you're feeling impatient and want to know about the color, you should do that. I'm not going to stop you.
You're not going to stop.
No.
All right. Well, I say in these modern times, we should carpe sake.
Oh, all right then. Well then, why don't you open that up and pour it? Live for the moment. Live for the day. Live for the sake.
All right. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to pour it. All right. Let's see. Smells good.
All right.
I'll say
Now,
that.
in your glass, is that slight bit of amber color showing up?
It is very, very light.
Then this probably is from the aging then.
Yeah, I think it is.
Now, mine will have been aged a year at negative 10 and then a year, hopefully, refrigerated.
Yeah, the aroma for me is very perfumey. It's floral and fruity, but concentrated and rich. I think that aging gives it a richness. So, John, I feel alone here, so I think you have to pour yours as well.
Well, since you insist.
I do insist.
All right. I think we're breaching etiquette, drinking sake 10 minutes into the show, but I'm not complaining. All right. Mine also, very, very slight amber, which was nice.
It's so strange having the same thing.
It is bizarre. I'm used to tasting something completely isolated and being like, well, I can say whatever I want because Tim doesn't have the same thing in front of him. Now I was like, oh, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah. So I said the aroma was kind of perfumey, a little bit floral.
Plenty of floral. I don't know too much. I don't know if I noticed the perfume so much, the perfuminess to it. I say that because I'm very sensitive to perfume, like actual perfume, and meaning that I tend to bother my sinuses a little bit. Yeah. So I'm not having that, and that's something I associate with that type of aroma.
Well, when I say perfumey, I mean more of the expression of the intensity of the aroma.
Oh, okay.
Not that it smells like a specific perfume, but that perfume tends to be a little bit more overt of an aroma.
Okay,
so,
that helps a lot. That makes sense.
So the aroma's not shy. That's another way of saying that.
It is definitely not.
Okay, let's go ahead and give it a taste. It's definitely rich. The body has some richness and viscosity to it, doesn't it?
There's a lot of coating going on in the mouth in just one sip.
Yeah. I think the point you mentioned about this being an aged sake, aged for 1 year at below freezing temperatures, is such an important characteristic, such an important marker for this sake. it informs so much, I think, about the texture and the concentration of the aroma and the flavors. And it adds, I think we can both agree that there's a silkiness and a velvety texture to this. Like, it's very smooth, very, very smooth.
This is one of those sakes that's going to disappear if you are not careful about how fast you're drinking it and how much you're enjoying it. It's one of those things it's very mild and very, in my head at least, it's very mild and something that you can just kind of endlessly sip.
Yeah, it goes down very easily. But it does have a bit, it's not goes down easily and is light. There's a richness here. There's a coating to the palate. And there's a perfumed essence to the nose. So for me, this has an intensity to it that lighter sakes don't have. It's very velvety and rich, very luxurious, but it has a bit of presence there too.
Just, I guess it would be a lot more comparable to some of the earlier stuff we had from Yamagata on the show, where we're talking about viscosity and how that really coats the entire mouth and really builds on itself as you're sipping.
So have you ever met Mr. Kato, the president of Born Sake Brewery?
I have had the pleasure, and I do mean that, because he is a character. He is boisterous and dresses the part. He's always wearing like a pinstripe suit, and his hair is like slicked back, and he is ready to tell you why you need to love his sake. That's something I've always noticed about him.
He's definitely his brewery's #1 marketing guru and cheerleader for the Born
absolutely
brand.
He's not shy about it.
He's definitely a character. He's a very, very nice guy. But I have a favorite story about Mr. Kato.
Oh, I'm ready.
Back in 2011, we had a fundraiser here in New York for the earthquake relief. So there was the Tohoku earthquake in March 2011. And I think a month later, we had a big fundraiser. All the breweries got together. And Mr. Kato actually flew from Japan to come to it was called New York Loves Japan. And we did a big fundraiser to raise money for earthquake relief. And Mr. Kato showed up kind of unexpected, unannounced. And
unannounced?
Yeah, we weren't
That's
really
awesome.
expecting many brewers to come because it was relatively short notice. He got on a plane, came here, and I was pouring sake at my table, and I looked over after about an hour into the event, and it was very crowded, very popular event, and I saw one head sticking up above the crowd. Mr. Kato got up on a chair, and he put one bottle of his sake in each hand. And as people were walking by, he was pouring from one hand and the other. And people just kind of held up their cup, and he had a crowd around him. And at the end of sake events, very often, Kato-san attracts a crowd because his personality is so magnetic, and he's pouring sake one out of each hand. And he was like up on a chair. And I always have that image of him when I think of Born Sake Brewery or Mr. Kato.
That sounds about right. For me, whenever I see Kato-san at an event, it's no matter how early I got there or no matter how much attention I'm paying to who's there, the first time I notice him, it's always when he shows up with a bottle and is pouring, because that's, you mentioned he's like the #1 cheerleader. And so he's coming around all the time. He's got, his sake in his hand. He wants to put that sake in a cup so somebody can taste it. He wants them to experience his sake.
That's one thing I think that he and I have in common is that
you like to pour sake for random people that you say?
We like to pour sake. I'm a firm believer in that one taste can change your life.
Oh, absolutely, it does.
One taste can get you hooked on sake. And in order to make that happen, you have to overcome that barrier that some people have to trying sake. And his approach is to be very outgoing and really use his exuberance to get people to try sake. And there's lots of people that really like that. And he makes only Junmai Daiginjo sake, which is like the super premium grade. So all his sakes tend to be a little bit more expensive, more luxury oriented. And really delicious and easy to really like them because they're so smooth and delicious.
Yeah, this one though, I will say the gold is actually very reasonably priced, in my opinion at least, and based on my experiences buying it, it's occasionally a go-to for me because of its position in the price versus quality spectrum. Like I think it's in a really good spot where it has a really great flavor to it, but it also doesn't break the bank.
Yep. Yeah, I think of his lineup, this Born Gold is one of the more affordable options.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Kato also makes a sake called Dreams Come True. Have you ever tried that?
I think I have. I think the man himself has poured me a glass of that.
Wow.
Just once though.
That is their super luxury high-end sake. They give that as a gift to like heads of state and things like that. So
really?
Yeah, it's like a super high-end sake, but the name of that sake is called Dreams Come True. And Mr. Kato always says, if you drink this sake, you will have visions of the future. And it is so funny. And it's an amazing sake, so good. And if I get a chance to get a sip of it at a sake event, I always pay attention to my dreams. I'm a firm believer in dreams come true.
I see. I did not know that it would give me powers beyond the realm of normal space and time. So I was not paying a lot of attention following. However, it was delicious. I actually, when you brought it up, I brought up a spec sheet so that I can kind of see what this was all about. And this Dreams Come True, which for people at home, just to reiterate, we are not currently drinking.
We are not drinking Dreams Come True.
No. Well, maybe we'll celebrate with a bottle when we can finally do the show again together.
Our dreams did not come true today.
No.
So what are the specs for it?
So it is also Yamada Nishiki. It's polished down to 35%. It's using the same yeast, but it's aged at -8 degrees Celsius for 5 years.
Oh my God. So that's
going to be really interesting. Again, I have tasted it, but I didn't. It's sometimes somebody pours something for you. You don't know what you're getting necessarily at the time. You don't. Like, oh, this is delicious, but you don't know. Oh, this was aged for 5 years at -8 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, very often when we go to sake events, there's like a bunch of tables, and you go from table to table. And there's a whole bunch of people around you, and you don't get the chance always to get the whole skinny on every single sake that you taste. Sometimes you just get it and you taste it and you just react to it. But that is something that I didn't even know about Dreams Come True. 5 years in the making. That could technically be a koshu or an aged sake,
totally.
Aged on purpose sake.
But I think that they're not going to necessarily call it koshu because that puts an idea in your head of what it's going to taste like.
Absolutely.
And just like when a brewery, even though their milling ratio may call for them to call something a ginjo or a daiginjo, et cetera, and they choose to go with the one that's hitting the flavor profile they're going for, they'll use that. And I think that in this case, you may want to not use koshu because it's going to make you think of more desserty stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think of.
Well, going back to Born Gold, what do you think about food pairings for this sake?
Ooh, so this is interesting. So Born Gold is on the menu for people who listened to last week's episode. John talked about his aha moment. And John's aha moment took place at a izakaya in New York that is no longer in the same place that it was, but they still exist. And the Calorie has long since left their menu, but the Born Gold is now kind of the thing that my friend and I, that same friend, when we go there, we'll have Born Gold with all of our very, very delicious izakaya food. And so I've never given a lot of thought to what to pair Born Gold with because I just drink it with that stuff and I love it.
Yep. So this sake for you was aha adjacent.
It shares a common heritage with my aha sake.
Okay. Well, I think that izakaya food, that would be, for our listeners, that's like sake pub, a lot of deep fried Japanese comfort food kind of dishes, and really delicious.
I don't get too much deep fried stuff when I go. I'm not, but I do, a little bit. But yeah, lots of really, I guess maybe I think what I often get when I go there is like soft shell crab tempura.
I hate to break it to you, but tempura is deep fried.
Well, no. I was trying to find something that was deep fried that I get when I go there. So I'm aware, Tim, that tempura is deep fried. Oh man, come on! Give me a little credit.
It does pair well with fried food. My idea for food pairing was like, I was thinking of dishes that have like, not curry, not the spice of curry, but
right.
if you have like a beef dish with a sauce on it, or beef bourguignon, for example, that's something that it's a French dish that has a very umami rich, beefy red wine sauce. And this has enough body, enough presence, I think, to really stand up to something like beef bourguignon. And it's really has that richness and that viscosity that you need. But it's not over the top. It's not aged 5 years. It's not aged 10 years. It's aged 1 year. And that aging gives you that richness that you need to stand up to a dish like that. So that would be my pairing pick.
Nice. Now, out of curiosity, so this is aged from 1 year, but it's aged at such an extremely cold temperature that's going to really slow down the aging process, I guess you'd say, on that sake. So what impact is that going to have since it's so cold?
Yeah. Well, one thing that, in my understanding, the aging process at really low temperatures can slow down oxidation. And oxidation is the exposure of the sake to oxygen over time. And what that can do is darken the sake. Koshu, as you mentioned before, has a certain image to it. Koshu is aged on purpose sake, usually 3 years or longer. And Koshu tends to be brownish, sherry-like in appearance. Yeah. And what's causing that brown color is actually the sugars start to caramelize. The sugars that are in the sake caramelize over time, and you get that toffee, dark chocolate, tobacco notes in the sake. When you age a sake at very, very low temperatures, you put the brakes on that process, and you're not going to get the caramelization of those sugars. So the sake is going to remain clear in color and a little bit more unaged in the traditional sense.
Interesting. All right. One thing I'm noticing as this warms up a little bit, because when we record, I do not have my air conditioner on. So it is getting a little warm in here. And it is tasting, and the aroma especially is a little sweeter, or presenting as a little bit sweeter to me.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. It's they say that sake really changes every 5 degrees, right? Is that the go-to? Is that the
Is that what they say?
Is that what they say?
I think
I've
just
heard that's what
it.
they say. I've heard them say it. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to it, though.
I think we can put that on the Sake Revolution website as a quote from John Puma.
That's not a quote from John Puma. I borrowed that quote from elsewhere.
I always say that enjoying sake at different temperatures is one of the charms of sake. Like, it's one of the points that differentiates sake from other alcoholic beverages, is that you can enjoy it at different temperatures and enjoy different aspects of sake. And as you make a sake colder and colder, you are going to hide certain aspects of the sake. And sweetness could be one of those things that gets a little bit more buried and covered up as it gets colder. So as it approaches room temperature, that sweetness and the sugars can come out a little bit more on the flavor profile.
Yeah, they're definitely coming out to play a little bit here. This is interesting. Nice. Well, Tim, I think we forgot to do the sake education corner.
Were we going to do a sake education corner?
We were.
I don't remember. Well, we'll pick up next week where we left off.
All right. Okay. So next week we'll do 2 sake education corners. No. It's been fun to just talk about a particular sake with you for a while, especially the same sake. Who knew?
I know. We both had the same one. That's unbelievable. Well,
who knew that could be so much fun? We should probably try to coordinate our purchases every now and again in the future.
Roger that.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks so much to all our listeners for tuning in. We really hope that you're enjoying our show. If you'd like to show your support for Sake Revolution, one way you can really help us out would be to take a couple minutes and leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best ways for you to help us get the word out about our podcast.
That's right. And if you, for some reason, want to also tell a friend, that's also a really great way to get the word out. But also make sure that you and your friends subscribe so that this wonderful podcast will just pop into your device of choice every week all by itself, and you'll never miss an episode.
And as always, to learn more about any of the topics or the sake we talked about in today's episode, be sure to visit our website, sakerevolution.com, for all the detailed show notes.
And if you have a sake question that you need answered, we want to hear from you. Please reach out to us at feedback@sakerevolution.com. Until next time, please remember to keep drinking sake and kanpai.